Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 25th of March, 2024, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of our show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the second phase of the Afghan repatriation that is about to begin. The preparations have started from the Pakistani side and to send around 1 million Afghans back to their homeland with directives to direct authorities and police to map and collect data of their whereabouts across the country. The repatriation also is going on in a very dignified and a safe manner. As of March 24, 2024, total number of illegal Afghans who have left Pakistan has reached 520,692. And of course, 7,186 Afghan nationals have returned to the country over the last 2 weeks. Also, a Pakistani Commerce Ministry delegation is scheduled to attend 2 days of talks in the Afghan capital Kabul to explore ways to remove obstacles in transit and bilateral trade. The Secretary Commerce Khurram Agha will undertake this 2-day visit, and of course he will be leading a big delegation from the Pakistani side. And as Zahra Baloch, the Foreign Office spokesperson, said, Pakistan remains committed to promoting trade and people-to-people ties with Afghanistan. This is going to be our first segment, the repatriation of the Afghans that is going on, as well as the talks that are beginning in Kabul, starting from today, 2 days of talks between Afghan and Pakistani sides. The second segment today concerns the day 171 of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Palestinians are fleeing different hospitals, whether it be the Al-Shifa, whether it be Al-Amal or Nasser hospitals in southern Gaza, who are being bombarded by the Israeli authorities as we speak. The patients there, the number of patients there and in other hospitals is increasing in number, and at the same time the facilities are dwindling because A, of the lack of resources, B, of the aid not arriving as it should from the different crossings, and of course we all know the issues that are surrounding that, because the Afghan authorities and also the Afghan settlers are not allowing this aid to enter properly. Israel has also informed the United Nations it will no longer approve UNRWA food convoys to North Gaza, where 70% of people face an extreme level of food security. Mediation efforts also to end the bloodshed in Gaza appear to be struggling, dwindling. Let's see what will or could be the outcome of these talks. Nevertheless, a lot of pessimism is prevailing in the environment. Also, at least 32,226 Palestinians have been killed, 74,518 injured since this conflict began last year on the 7th of October. This is going to be our second story. A third story concerns holy celebrations across the world, including in Pakistan. The Hindu community in Pakistan, also in the world, is celebrating Holi today. The Festival of Colors is marked by an array of colorful events that symbolize the onset of the spring season, and also it signifies the rejuvenation and victory of good over evil. Our Prime Minister and President and our Chief Minister Punjab have also facilitated the Hindu community on this occasion. Finally, we'll be talking about the US moon lander that has failed to wake up after landing an uncrewed American lander that had become the first private spaceship on the moon, has now unfortunately met its ultimate end after failing to wake up, the company that built it has said. Although such endeavors will continue, but of course it is a step back as far as these endeavors towards the moon, and of course the different explorations of planets, whether it be the moon or the planets, and of course the ultimate NASA dream to land people on Mars and to put communities on Mars is something that seems to be a distant reality, but a reality nevertheless. Let's begin with our first segment, and our first story concerns the second phase of the Afghan repatriation as well as the Pakistan-Afghan talks. Now, we all know that Pakistan had started this whole wave of undocumented Afghan repatriation, or those who had been living illegally in Pakistan, and as per that, a lot of Afghans have left Pakistan. So have other nationalities and other nationals of belonging to other countries who have left in this first phase. Now, in the second phase, also the Pakistan is planning through its provincial governments and the government of Aizaz Jammu and Kashmir to not only map and collect data of the whereabouts of the Afghan nationals across the country, and then of course ensure their safe return to their respective country. This is of course continuing and has been continuing in a very dignified and a safe manner. As of March 24, 2024, total number of illegal Afghans who have left Pakistan has reached 520,692, and of course this return continues as we speak as well. 7,186 Afghan nationals have returned to their country over these last 2 weeks. 2,874 men, 1,543 women, and 2,769 children have reached their homes safely. A total of 298 families have thus been repatriated in 284 vehicles for Afghanistan in this just in the last 2 weeks. Also, Pakistani Commerce Ministry delegation is arriving in Kabul to explore ways to remove the obstacles in the transit and bilateral trade. This has been confirmed from both the Afghan side and the Pakistani side as well. The Foreign Office spokesperson Mumtaz Zahra Baloch has said yesterday that Pakistan is committed to promote trade and people-to-people ties with Afghanistan. And she said for this very purpose, the Secretary of Commerce Khurram Agha is undertaking a 2-day visit to Afghanistan to discuss trade-related matters. Pakistan remains committed to promoting trade and people-to-people ties with Afghanistan, she also added on the occasion. We've been joined by Aizaz Chaudhry Sahab, he's a former Foreign Secretary. Thank you very much, Aizaz Sahab, to have joined us. Aizaz Sahab, Pakistan has begun these preparations to launch the second phase of its repatriation drive to displace the Afghanistans who are present in Pakistan back to their respective country in a safe and a dignified manner. And for that, mapping and collecting data of their whereabouts is also going on as we speak. How important is this step in your point of view, given the geostrategic situation of the whole region?
Well, I think every country in principle has the right to look after its residents, provided they are legal and they belong to that state. Now, Afghan refugees came here with the clear understanding that one day they will go back. And that hasn't happened. Now that there is no more war within Afghanistan, after the Taliban came, it is relatively stable. So there is every reason for these refugees to go back. The only factor that government of Pakistan will have to bear in mind is that it should not be an ugly affair, that it should be smooth and orderly. And we should also talk to the Taliban government to make sure that once they go to Afghanistan, they are given back their lands in which they were living, and they are able to find some kind of economic activity. For that, coordination with the Taliban government, I think, would be very, very important. But in principle, I think Pakistan has every right to send them back, because that was the understanding when they came here in the first place.
All right. Aizaz Sahab, also Taliban chief spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid, who had earlier called the repatriation of the undocumented Afghans as unacceptable, has struck more or less a more conciliatory note at this time while he talked to one of the Afghan channels, that is Tolo News, and he has called for more refugee leniency from Pakistan. My question is twofold. A, has Afghanistan understood Pakistan's perspective on the Afghan refugees, and B, is Afghanistan also understanding the situation that Pakistan is in because of course, the militancy element that has also struck Pakistan since the last few months?
I think both, because the Taliban government had, as you know, been using the proxy of TTP against Pakistan, forgetting that if it was not the goodwill of Pakistan, then Pakistan also has many cards in its hands. And second, the Taliban should recognize that these refugees are Afghan nationals. So my sense is that Taliban are beginning to realize that their proxy game that they were trying to play will not work, and Pakistan can then also not be forced to host so many refugees who have taken up transport-related and many other jobs in KPK and also in northern Balochistan, and even parts of Karachi. So therefore, I think some realization in the Taliban ranks is there. But I would say, again, reiterate that it is important to use this opportunity with the Taliban government to bring home the point that, look, for good 4 decades we were hosting them, and they had practically meshed into Pakistani population, all because we thought Afghans are our brother and it's a brotherly country. But if you behave like this, that you are shedding the blood of people of Pakistan through your proxy called TTP, then all bets will be off. I think it's a message that should be sinking in Afghanistan for their own benefit, for their own countrymen and women. I think they should realize that that they should open up their arms to their own countrymen and women who had gone, from the country in the decades before. If Pakistan can open arms to welcome them, their nationals, then they jolly well should also open their arms to accept their own countrymen and women back to their country.
I totally understand and I agree with you, Aizaz Sahab. Also, this repatriation of the Afghan refugees was also part of the National Action Plan, which had been developed way back in 2014. And it was also now found a mention in Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's 100-day working plan. How do you see this as a priority for the current government? And do you feel it should be one of the topmost priorities or an important priority for the current government?
It is an important priority, but not the top priority. Of course, the top priority for Pakistan
is economy.
Is economy to build back the economy and economic activity. But this is also the presence of refugees in such large numbers is also a distortion to the economy of Pakistan, which we have borne for such a long time. And I think, at least I, for one, have always supported the right in principle of the government of Pakistan to repatriate them. My own nuance to this has always been that it should be done in a manner which is orderly and by taking the Taliban government on board, so that when these refugees go, it is not a humanitarian crisis of any sort, neither on the border nor when they reach Afghanistan.
All right. Also, as per in this second phase of the repatriation of the Afghan nationals, all provinces and the government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir and law enforcement agencies have been tasked with collecting information on the Afghan citizen card holders and have been asked to complete mapping and verification process of these holders by the 25th of March this year. Do you feel this process could happen with within this time frame, looking at the holy month of Ramadan as well, and also other legalities concerning this? Do you feel this could take longer?
Honestly, this should have happened much earlier. Much earlier. This was long due. And every time this came up, and I remember when I was also in the government, every time it came up, there were people who would filibuster and say, no, this or that. I think the government has to be determined. If something has to be done, it has to be done. And what is it? Which is just registration, mapping of where people are. And I think it is important because of not only as a responsibility of the government to know who is who in the country, but more importantly because some of the terrorists and militants hide themselves amongst the refugees, either in the refugee camps and then they create all that terrorism-related activity from within. And that's why it is important for Pakistan to do this mapping, and I hope that all government agencies will do it, and the people of Pakistan should also cooperate. For example, if somebody is living and he knows that in his neighborhood so-and-so houses are occupied by the Afghans who may be registered, who may not be registered. But I think registration is absolutely essential.
All right, Aizaz, let's come to the negotiations between Afghanistan and Pakistan. There is, of course, a Commerce Ministry delegation that is going to begin two-day talks starting from today in Kabul. Foreign Office spokesperson Mumtaz Hara Baloch confirmed that is going to be headed by the Secretary of Commerce, Khurram Agha. And she said that Pakistan remains committed to promoting trade and people-to-people ties with our neighborhood country. How important, in your point of view, is Pakistan's resolve to continue trade despite the influx of militancy from the Afghan soil?
I think the two should not be connected. I think the trade should continue. I think the trade is something which has happened for centuries. That should not be discontinued. I have always maintained that while we may have conflict with any of our neighbors, one area, which is trade, should always continue. And Afghans, if you don't, naturally alternative channels will start to appear. Already India and Iran are trying to use Chabahar to provide an alternative for Afghan goods. I believe the natural direction of Afghan goods, whether it is bilateral trade or whether it is transit trade through the ports of Pakistan, is Pakistan. And we should take advantage of it, because trade is for the benefit of both countries. Trade is also helpful in building peace constituencies on both sides. So trade is something which must continue. We should facilitate that. I don't like it when on the borders I see long queues of containers, stranded. I think that is very, very important. So I'm glad that our people are there to talk to them. And I'm also hoping that something on transit trade will also happen, because transit trade has to be regulated better than it is. It is a matter of common knowledge that all these transit goods don't go to Afghanistan. Many of them either get dumped into Pakistan, injuring our industry and commerce, or sometimes they are smuggled back to Pakistan. So a proposal has been there for a long, long time, and I think it is time to implement that. That all the goods imported for transit trade for Afghanistan should be charged the same customs duty that is charged on Pakistani goods. Then there will be no incentive for these goods to be dumped in Pakistan. So something like that we'll have to, whether Afghans agree or they don't agree, this is something in our own national interest we must do. But trade, yes, trade is absolutely important.
All right. My next question was also about transit trade and the difference of opinion that exists between both the Pakistani and Afghan sides. The Afghan Commerce Ministry spokesperson says discussions are going to be held on overall bilateral and transit trade, but they also said that they are going to take the issue of the ban on several transit items, and said that 50% of transit trade has been decreased due to this ban and has shifted to Iran. How do you see Pakistan's decisions recently that have been taken vis-a-vis transit trade? Do you feel it has been effective as far as curtailing smuggling is concerned?
Yeah, I think, there is one issue, that is that items which reached Afghanistan, many times those items are those which are not used there. So their ultimate use is in Pakistan. It comes back across the border this is a porous border, and thereby it hurts Pakistan. I grew up as a young man going, my family or somebody will go to Bada to buy cloth, which was smuggled cloth. It was basically imported in the name of transit trade to Afghanistan and came back to Pakistan, and we would buy a cheaper cloth there. The same thing was happening with many other commodities. So the government of Pakistan must have thought of putting some kind of, limit on goods on which it can. Well, I don't have the details what items have been banned, but my suggestion or proposal would be that when they sit for talks, I think the primary point was that, okay, they can get anything. Not anything, not arms and ammunition, etc. There should be a banned list, very small banned list. But the customs duties will be charged at entry point in Pakistan, and then these will be remitted to Afghan government later on. That's what most of the transit countries do. Take the example of India and Nepal. Nepal is a landlocked country. Their goods enter Bombay or some other Mumbai or some other port of India. Customs duty is charged, and 6 months later, or books are balanced out, and that money which belongs to Nepal is given to Nepal. The same thing should be done to us. I think on these matters we should be very, very clear. Transit trade should be encouraged and allowed, minus the banned items, of course, which are otherwise for security purposes banned. But customs duty must be charged so that there is no incentive left for smuggling back to Pakistan.
All right. Thank you so very much, Aizaz Chaudhry, sir, former Foreign Secretary, joining us and discussing with us, of course, two very important elements that are happening vis-a-vis Afghanistan. A, the repatriation, the second phase of the repatriation of the Afghan nationals that is going to begin shortly from different areas of Pakistan. And for this, the collection of data and mapping is also happening, and the instructions have been given to all the provinces and, of course, Azad Jammu and Kashmir as well, to give details about the Afghan nationals. And at the same time also, the repatriation of the Afghan nationals is going on very smoothly and safely and with dignity. And I also mentioned the number of Afghan nationals who have been repatriated just in the last 2 weeks, and that is around 7,000 and 186. 520,692 Afghan nationals have already left Pakistan for Afghanistan, and these are those who were illegally living in Pakistan, who have left for their home country. And of course, other illegal foreign nationals who are also living in Pakistan in this first phase have also left Pakistan for their respective countries. We are also looking at all those who are also currently illegally present in Pakistan. Of course, different steps are being taken as far as that is concerned. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns the day 177 of the conflict between Afghanistan, I was talking of Afghanistan, so the word comes to the mouth, between Israel and Palestine. And the number of casualties increase with every passing day, with every passing hour as we speak. 32,226 Palestinians have been killed, 74,518 have been wounded in these attacks on Gaza since the 7th of October. Israel has informed the United Nations it will no longer approve UNRWA food convoys to North Gaza, where 70% of people face an extreme level of food scarcity. And this is nothing that is unknown to the West or unknown to the people who matter, who could pressurize Israel, or to Israel itself. Despite that, Israel continues bombarding not only the camps, but also the hospitals, but also those places where the refugees are cramped deliberately so as to aggravate their existing situation. And the ultimate game plan, as we've discussed in various shows before here as well, and also what our analysts have been saying, a lot of international analysts have also been saying that the ultimate plan of Israel is, of course, to displace all the Palestinians from Gaza elsewhere, whether it be in Egypt or in other places of Palestine, and of course to occupy Gaza by itself. We've been joined by Osama Muhammad Nazzal. He's a Palestinian journalist. He joins us, of course, from Palestine. Thank you very much, Osama, to have joined us. Osama, I would like to understand the latest situation as far as the different hospitals in Palestine are concerned, whether it be the Israeli siege of the Al-Shifa hospital, where they say that the bulldozers have driven over at least 4 bodies and ambulances, then the Al-Amal and Nasser hospitals in northern Gaza that are also in dire straits and also being attacked by Israel. Of course, in Khan Yunus, and this use of military vehicles, tanks and attack drones in these facilities, with 18 Palestinians also killed in the bombing of a home in Deir al-Bela in central Gaza, and 27 Palestinians killed in Rafah. All of this is going on, and still, we are only hearing of talks happening, of statements emanating. Why is all of this going on without any actual action being taken place?
Yeah, first thing, really what's happening in Gaza today is a classic Palestinian hospital, Palestinian health sector. Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City has been under the Israeli siege for the 8th day, and they committed a lot of atrocities inside the hospital and around the hospital. They killed dozens of people, they detained hundreds of people, and they forced the patients who can't even walk out, telling them to go to nowhere. as there is no safe area, in particular in Ashifa surroundings and Gaza city. The Zionist set fire to the surgery and to the arteries hospital and built around it. So we are talking about a crime against humanity, a war crime, because it has never been expected really to find a state or an entity attacking and burning hospitals in the modern history in violation of all the human norms and the human values. Apart from Ashifa, the same Al Amal Hospital and Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, which is in the south of the Gaza Strip. So they are committing these crimes with a clear aim, which is to end the existence of the Palestinian people in Gaza by destroying the health sector, by destroying the hospitals, the schools, the United Nations facilities, and everything. It is a Zionist plan, ethnic cleansing, genocidal plan, and of course, Israel knows well that this plan can't be implemented unless you remove the hospitals, the schools, and the infrastructure necessary for human life. This is what's happening.
All right. Osama, also, Israel has informed the United Nations that it will no longer be approving food convoys from UNRWA to North Gaza, where, of course, 70% of people are facing a starvation. Famine also, as per a report, is likely going to occur in May in northern Gaza and could spread across the enclave by July. This is a report that has been backed by the United Nations that was recently taken out. There is malnutrition, there is food insecurity, food is not coming. If the food is coming, it is being stopped by the Israeli authorities or the Israeli settlers. United Nations Secretary General calls for immediate action to prevent this famine, and he describes the situation as entirely man-made. While it is apparent that Israel is using famine as a weapon of war against the Palestinians, what, in your point of view, is going to be the future of these helpless people?
Yeah, it is inhuman, really, that food and the bread is weaponized. Israel is weaponizing food and the nutrients and finding not enough to kill the Palestinians by rockets and bombs, but also by starving the Palestinians, by depriving them of flour, of the basic food items, really. You know that in Gaza today, breastfeeding women can't breastfeed their children because they don't have any food and so they don't have milk. So we are talking about a compounded problem. Rockets and missiles from the sky, and famine and starvation as the trucks loaded with thousands of tons of food are held at the crossing points, whether at Rafah or at Karim Abu Salim crossing points, as Israel is refusing to allow them in. And Israel's war against the Palestinians in Gaza is a war against the Palestinian national cause, the Palestinian refugees, and that's why it is targeting UNRWA and the whole body of the United Nations. We know the symbolic importance of UNRWA for the cause of the Palestinian refugees. Israel is thinking that by ending existence and the function of UNRWA, it would end the cause of the Palestinian refugees and it would end the Palestinian rights of return, the right that Israel is doing everything possible in order to end it and keep all the land from the river to the sea to the Jewish people and to the Zionists at the expense of the indigenous people of Palestine. That's why Israel is targeting the UNRWA, and that is the only objective. And we all remember in 2017 when the Israeli occupation Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that UNRWA must be defunded and its function must be stopped. And the American president at that time, Donald Trump, had encouraged and supported Israel and defunded the UNRWA. So we are talking about scheme. We are talking a plan by the Zionist regime in order to end the whole of the Palestinian cause. Ethnic cleansing and genocide once again.
All right. Osama, let's talk of the United Nations, where the UN Security Council is set to vote on a new ceasefire resolution. It will be tonight, around 1400 hours GMT. We all remember the rejection of the US-backed draft on Friday. This resolution calls for an immediate ceasefire for a month of Ramadan and has been put forward by 10 elected members of the Security Council. China is also supporting it, and of course, it did not support the last one that had been backed by the US. What do you feel is going to happen? Will this resolution pass this time? And if so, what could be the consequence of it?
First of all, no one can deny that the United States is taking part in this war against the Palestinian people. And the United States is complicit, and it did not stop for 1 minute supporting Israel with money and with weapons, as most of the bombs used against Gaza today are from the United States. The United States, and since the start of the war, was calling for a pause in the fight, but never called for ending the Israeli genocidal campaign and never called for a permanent ceasefire, in contravention of the wishes and the calls by the rest of the international community, including the different United Nations bodies. So what the Americans are working on is to have a pause for 5 weeks or 6 weeks, but they don't call for a permanent ceasefire. Were the Americans interested in a permanent ceasefire, the American president would call the Zionist regime prime minister by telephone to stop, and would stop. The same as what happened in 1982 when Ronald Reagan, the American president at that time, ordered Israel to stop its bombardment of Western Beirut, and it did. And we remember Eisenhower in 50 when he asked Israel to stop its war on Egypt, and it stopped. So it is a matter of one telephone call from the United States, and all these genocidal acts and these crimes would stop. But the Americans are not interested in that, and they refuse to stop encouraging and supporting Israel. And all that we hear today from Lincoln and Biden is just part of the electoral campaign for the Arab Muslim community in the United States and for the activists to support the freedom and justice for the Palestinians. But from a strategic point of view, the Americans are fully backing Israeli genocide against the Palestinians, and that is the real problem we face here.
All right. So, in that case, how do you see this statement by Vice President Kamala Harris, who says Washington has been clear that a military operation on Rafah in southern Gaza would be a huge mistake? At the same time, I'd like to also add to that a comment made by Antonio Guterres, who sees that there is a growing consensus emerging in the international community to tell Israel that a ceasefire is needed, but also a growing consensus to tell clearly that any ground invasion of Rafah could mean a catastrophic humanitarian disaster. What do these statements indicate? Do these have any weightage?
Yeah. First, Kamala Harris' statements, okay, it's important to hear such statements from senior officials in the United States. But these statements must be supported by steps on the ground. Because when we are talking about children being killed every minute, women being raped and killed every minute, Israeli soldiers in Ashifa hospital raped Palestinian women, and after they raped them, they killed them, according to some reports and some testimony coming from Gaza. So what is needed, not only a statement that is passed on the ground. Why doesn't the American administration stop providing weapons for Israel? Why they don't freeze or stop the financial support for Israel? Why they don't impose any sanctions on Israel until it stops its crimes. Apart from all that, why the United States uses the veto against any resolution, whether presented by the Arabs or any other countries in the United Nations Security Council, calling for permanent ceasefire, and they go to the other option, which is just report the fight, and all that about is secure the release of the Israeli hostages inside Gaza. And they mention nothing about the 10,000 Palestinian prisoners held in the Israeli occupation prisons. So the Americans are talking something but doing something completely opposite to what they say. And this
All,
proves once again that they are complicit in the genocide against Gaza.
all right, but of course, the United Nations and Antonio Guterres are on the Palestinian side. They are doing whatever they can, but they are also facing a lot of opposition, as we've seen time and again how the Israeli, ambassador at the United Nations had openly asked Antonio Guterres to step down. Well, this said, Germany's foreign minister, Ms. Baerbock, is also arriving in Egypt today to meet with the foreign minister of Egypt, and then she's going to travel to meet the Israeli foreign minister, and will also meet with the Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas. She has also criticized the lack of aid that is entering Palestine, and also said that airdrops or sea bridges are not a sustainable solution. Do you feel efforts such as these could have some impact?
Uh, First of all, we need to understand that whether the European Union, Germany, United States, the whole of the international community is responsible for the plight that the Palestinians are going through today. Because the Palestinians have calling on the international community to force Israel or to pressure Israel to agree to the terms of peace that were set by the United by the Americans and the general international community, but they failed to do that. You know, the Palestinians signed Oslo Agreement since 1993, but as an interim agreement, and this agreement was not respected by Israel and was not transformed into a permanent solution where the Palestinians can enjoy freedom, justice, and all that because of the failure of the international community. So the coming of the German foreign minister today to the Rafah crossing or to the region is really too late. It is too late because the Palestinian freedom and independence has been overdue for a long, long time. What is demanded once again is to not only to talk, but to take action and to impose sanctions on the prepared government and to hold like an international investigation committee in order to hold the Israeli war criminals accountable for every single crime they committed against Palestinians in Gaza. Today we are talking about more than 32,000 Palestinians killed and 10,000 Palestinians are dying under the rubble, in addition to more than 70,000 injured. So we are talking about a genocide campaign, the first of its kind in the modern history, and all that we hear from those who call themselves civilized and democratic words and blabbering, but no action to stop that.
All right. Speaking of no action to stop there, I'd like to refer to another statement and then take your opinion on it. French President Macron tells Benjamin Netanyahu that any forced transfer of people from Rafah to southern Gaza would constitute a war crime. Is already part of different war crimes that Israel has committed. And do you see the relationship between Israel and the European Union deteriorating as a result of this, or do you feel it will be business as usual?
First of all, those who are talking about Rafah and if Israel carries out its invasion into Rafah, there would be like a disaster. They should not ignore and they should not forget the disaster that is happening everywhere in the Gaza Strip, in Jerusalem, and in the West Bank. Rafah has been bombardment for weeks, and families were killed in Rafah. Apart from Rafah, death is everywhere in Gaza. So Rafah is not the only issue today, but the whole of Gaza should be the issue of all the people who are talking and warning of the Israeli invasion into Rafah. Concerning the relationship between Israel and the European Union, if the European Union and the Western world wants to restore the credibility of its civilization and of its democracy and its slogans over human rights, these countries must treat Israel as a pariah state, a state that perpetrates genocidal acts against women, against children, a state whose soldiers celebrate blowing up universities, churches, and mosques, a state that is applying apartheid with the full international definition of the concept of apartheid. If they are civilized and if they are democratic, as they say, then they have to boycott this state.
All right. Osama, let's go to Israel and Netanyahu. Do you feel his popularity is waning politically? Because we've seen the recent event of these Israeli protesters paragliding over his residence and, and accusing him of being responsible for the what happened on October 7 and thereafter. Also, his approval ratings have gone down in the recent months. A lot of polls suggest that there will be others who will succeed. Will that change the politics of Israel, or will it be the same vis-a-vis Palestine, in your point of view?
First of all, we all agree that the current Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and his rightist government that includes Ben Gvir and the Smotrich, who call for the expulsion of the Palestinian people, and if not expulsion, then killing of the Palestinian people, as since day one of the creation of this government, the Israeli Minister of Finance, Smotrich, said that Palestinians have three options. Either they approve of Israel as an occupying power, or they leave Palestine, or they resist and they get killed. So this is the strategy on the basis of which the Israeli Prime Minister established his government. Now, concerning the popularity of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this is not the matter that the Palestinians care about really, because we know that the whole of the Israeli society is going and drifting toward the far right. And this is one of the key problems that Israel is facing today, as there is no space left for the liberals and no space left for the leftist parties of Israel. To a certain extent, you can say that there are no leftists in Israel today, and Israel is a state of the extremists, of the rightists who support colonization and the denial of the right of the other to exist. So even if Netanyahu steps down, and this is not expected because he is ready to do everything in order to cling to office, and he has the rightist parties supporting him, but even if he steps down, we are not going to have a government in Israel that would recognize the rights of the Palestinian people and implement the United Nations resolutions for the solution of the Palestinian cause by guaranteeing the Palestinians' right to statehood on the land occupied in 1967 with Jerusalem as its capital, and the Palestinian refugees' right of return. An Israeli government is denying that, and that is the other problem really we have.
Of course, there are so many problems and so many issues that the world needs to come as one in order to, deal with it in the right way, or else humanity will never forgive, nor will it forget what is happening to the Palestinians since the 7th of October last year. Thank you very much, Osama Mohammed Nazzal, Palestinian journalist, who have joined us, to have talked to us on many important issues concerning this conflict that has now entered his 171st day. Thank you very much. That was Osama Mohammed Nazzal, who was joining us from Palestine, talking to us about the situation that is engulfing the region. And of course, this is the 171st day of that very important conflict that is leading in more and more deaths and more conflicts with every passing day. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns the Holi celebrations that are occurring across the world, including in Pakistan today. And of course, Holi is a festival of colors, and our Prime Minister and our President have both felicitated the Hindu community in Pakistan on this very occasion. The President has said that the festival of Holi is symbolic of the triumph of good over evil, and also said the Constitution of Pakistan guarantees religious freedom, and Pakistan has a beautiful bouquet of people belonging to all religions. Our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has said, we take pride in the multi-ethnic, multilingual, multicultural and multi-religious characteristics of our society, and that let's commemorate this day with a resolve to celebrate our differences as strengths. Punjab Chief Minister Maryam Nawaz has also felicitated the Hindu community on the occasion of this holy festival. She said the government believes in equality, justice and fairness, and we share happiness of the festivity with the Hindu community. She has also announced a holy package for the Hindu community. Under this package, 700 families of the Hindu community will be given 10,000 rupees per person. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's come to the US moon lander that has permanently fallen asleep after a historic landing. This uncrewed American lander that had become the first private spacecraft on the moon has now unfortunately met its untimely end after failing to wake up. The company that had built it, that is Houston-based Intuitive Machines, says that unfortunately this now spacecraft is all but dead. This spacecraft or lander was named Odysseus, had not flown home this week when the solar panels were projected to receive enough sunlight to turn on its radio. This confirms that OD, as it is known as, is permanently faded after cementing its legacy into history as the first commercial lunar lander to land on the moon. It was also the first lunar touchdown by an American spaceship since the manned Apollo 17 mission in 1972. The United States, along with international partners, of course, wants to eventually develop long-term habitats in the region, harvesting polar ice for drinking water and produce rocket fuel for eventual onward voyages to Mars. So, of course, this is just one little pause in this whole step that a lot of countries in the West are taking toward achieving that greater goal. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.